For 11 months, I paid every single bill my sister, Monica, had, believing she was on the brink of collapse after her divorce. I worked double shifts while she recovered. Then, while clearing plates at our mother's birthday dinner, I heard her cackle to her boyfriend in the kitchen. Alice is so desperate for family she'd pay for my manicures if I told her it was therapy. She has no idea we bought the BMW. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I quietly finished my wine, went home, and canceled the standing order. 3 weeks later, the eviction notice hit, and the real show began. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The betrayal didn't happen in a dark alley or a courtroom. It happened over the smell of garlic bread and roasting rosemary chicken in the house I grew up in. It was a Sunday, the kind of crisp autumn evening that usually made me feel grounded, but tonight, the air in my mother Alina's dining room felt stiflingly hot. I was exhausted, not just the I need a nap kind of tired, but a deep, marrow-level exhaustion that made my bones ache. I had spent the last 3 weeks working 14-hour days at my architecture firm to cover the unexpected structural costs on the Highland project, all while maintaining the separate bank account I used to fund my sister's life. Monica, my older sister by 6 years, was sitting at the head of the table, swirling a glass of the expensive Pinot Noir I had brought. She looked radiant. Her skin was glowing, her hair was freshly highlighted. A soft honey blonde balayage that I knew cost at least $300, and she was wearing a silk blouse that looked suspiciously new. "This wine is decent, Alice," she said, her voice light and airy, lacking the heavy, tear-stained tremor she usually used when she called me asking for rent money. "A bit dry for my taste, but it works." "It's $40 a bottle," I murmured, pushing a roasted potato around my plate. "I'm glad it works." My mother, Elena, beamed from the other end of the table. Mom was a retired school teacher, a woman whose heart was made of soft cotton and blind optimism. She looked between us with that desperate hope that her 2 daughters were finally getting along. "It's just so nice to have everyone together," Mom said, clasping her hands. "And Monica, you're looking so much better, sweetheart. The stress. I was so worried about you last month." Monica sighed, a dramatic, practiced exhalation. She reached out and squeezed Mom's hand. "It's been a battle, Mom. Honestly, if it wasn't for, well, just taking it one day at a time, I don't know if I'd be here. The depression is a beast." I took a sip of water to wash down the bile rising in my throat. 11 months ago, Monica had come to me sobbing. Her husband had left, she had no savings, and she was going to be on the street. I had stepped in. I paid the rent on her 2-bedroom townhouse. I paid the utilities. I even sent her a grocery stipend of $600 a month. I did it because we were family. I did it because Dad was gone, and I promised him I'd look out for her. "Is Derek coming?" Mom asked gently. Derek was Monica's friend, a man she claimed was just a support system, an unemployed entrepreneur who was sleeping on her couch to help her feel safe. I knew he was living there. I knew he was eating the food I paid for. "He'll be here soon," Monica said, checking her phone, a brand new iPhone 15 Pro that she claimed was a gift from a generous friend. "He's just parking the car." Dinner proceeded. I felt like a ghost in my own family. I was the wallet, the ATM, the silent pillar that held up the roof, while Monica was the tragic heroine overcoming adversity. When we finished the main course, Mom stood up to get the dessert, her famous tiramisu. "Sit down, Mom," I said, my voice raspy. "I'll clear the plates, you relax." "Oh, thank you, Alice," Mom said, sinking back into her chair. "You're such a good girl." I gathered the plates, stacking them carefully. Monica didn't offer to help. She was too busy texting. I walked into the kitchen, the heavy swinging door pushing open with a squeak. I placed the dishes in the sink and turned to scrape the leftovers into the bin. That's when the back door opened. Derek walked in. He didn't see me. I was tucked into the alcove by the fridge, rinsing a glass. He walked straight through the kitchen toward the dining room, but stopped when Monica, who must have excused herself to use the restroom, met him in the hallway just outside the kitchen archway. They were out of sight, but their voices drifted into the kitchen, amplified by the tiled hallway. "Did you park it around the block?" Monica's voice was a hushed whisper, but sharp. Yeah, Derek chuckled. His voice was Reezy, self-satisfied. Can't have the golden goose seeing the new wheels, right? She'd flip if she knew her rent money went to a down payment on a 5 Series. I froze. The water running over my hand felt suddenly ice cold. I turned off the tap. The silence in the kitchen was deafening, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the thudding of my own heart. "She's so oblivious," Monica laughed, a cruel, wet sound. "I told her I needed an extra $200 for therapy last week. We used it for that dinner at Nabu. God, the lobster was good." "She's too stupid to know we're using her," Derek sneered. "She thinks she's being the big, noble sister. It's pathetic. How long do you think we can keep this gravy train rolling?" "Forever, if I cry hard enough," Monica replied. "She has a savior complex the size of Texas. Now, come on, look sad. I need to ask her for next month's rent early. I want to book that weekend in Cabo." They laughed again, a conspiratorial, mocking sound that shattered 11 months of sacrifice in 2 seconds. I stood there, gripping the edge of the granite countertop so hard my knuckles turned white. The room spun. The betrayal wasn't just the money. It was the contempt. It was the realization that while I was working myself into an early grave to keep a roof over her head, she was laughing at me. She didn't just take the money, she despised me for giving it. I felt a physical blow to my chest, a sickness that radiated outward. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis of stress-induced hypertension I'd received a week ago. It was total. I took a deep breath. I didn't storm out. I didn't throw the plates. A cold, terrifying calm washed over me. I picked up the tray of tiramisu, smoothed my dress, and walked back into the dining room. "Dessert is served," I said, my voice steady, betraying nothing. But as I set the cake down and looked at Monica's fake, teary-eyed smile, I knew one thing. The Bank of Alice was closed. And the foreclosure on her life was about to begin. The drive home from my mother's house that night was a blur of red taillights and rain-slicked asphalt. I don't remember navigating the turns or the highway merge. My body was on autopilot, operating purely on muscle memory, while my mind was replaying that conversation in the hallway on an endless, agonizing loop. "She's too stupid to know we're using her." The words bounced around the cabin of my modest sedan, a car I had kept for 8 years because I couldn't afford a new one while supporting 2 households. I gripped the steering wheel until my hands cramped. The irony was suffocating. I was the stupid one. I was the successful architect, the one who had graduated top of my class, the one who managed million-dollar commercial budgets. Yet, in the economy of my family, I was the fool. When I finally unlocked the door to my apartment, the silence greeted me like a heavy blanket. My place was nice, but sparse. I had put off buying a new sofa, put off the vacation to Italy I had dreamed of for 5 years, all to ensure Monica didn't end up in a shelter. I walked into my home office and sat down in the dark, the only light coming from the blinking router in the corner. I felt physically ill. My stomach churned, a mix of the rich dinner and the toxicity of the truth I had just ingested. I wrapped a blanket around myself, shivering despite the heating being on. It was a trauma response, I realized. My body was reacting to the shock of emotional violence. I pulled out my phone. There was a text from Monica, sent 10 minutes after I left. "Thanks for dinner, Allie. You seemed a bit quiet tonight. Hope you're okay. Also, regarding the rent for next month, the landlord said he might need it a few days early. Love you, Zoe." I stared at the screen, the glowing letters burning into my retinas. "Love you," it looked like a threat now. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop. I logged into my online banking. There it was, the scheduled transfer set for the 28th of the month, $2,400, labeled Monica rent, then another for $600 labeled groceries. Then the random Venmo transactions from the last month. $200 for therapy, $150 for car repair, which I now knew was likely a detailing service for the new BMW, $100 for medicine. Total cost of having a sister this year, nearly $35,000. I looked at the numbers, and for the first time, I didn't see duty. I saw theft. I saw my own future being siphoned away to fund a BMW and lobster dinners while I ate meal-prepped rice and beans. I opened a new browser tab and pulled up the lease agreement. This was the one thing Monica and Derek had forgotten, the one detail their arrogance had glossed over. When Monica was homeless, she had terrible credit. The landlord wouldn't touch her, so I hadn't just paid the rent, I had signed the lease. Technically, legally, the apartment was mine. Monica was listed as an occupant, not a tenant. I was the leaseholder. I held the keys to the kingdom, and they had just set fire to the throne. A memory surfaced from 3 months ago. I had gone over to fix a leaking faucet because Monica said she couldn't afford a plumber. Derek had been there, sitting on the couch playing video games. He hadn't even looked up. I remembered seeing a travel brochure for the Bahamas on the coffee table. When I asked about it, Monica had snatched it away, saying, "Oh, that's just for a dream board. Manifesting, you know." I had smiled and encouraged her. Manifesting. I closed my eyes and let out a long, shaky breath. They thought I was a doormat. They thought I was an infinite resource, a tap that would never run dry because I was desperate for connection. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I was an architect. I knew how to build things up, but more importantly, I knew exactly where the load-bearing walls were. And I knew exactly how to bring the whole structure down with a single, well-placed strike. I navigated to the landlord's portal. My finger hovered over the terminate lease button. No, that was too fast. If I terminated it now, I'd be on the hook for fees. I needed to be smarter. I needed to stop the flow of money first and let the natural consequences take over. I canceled the recurring transfer. Delete, confirm. Then I canceled the grocery stipend. Delete, confirm. The screen blinked, confirming the changes. It was such a small action, a few clicks of a mouse, but it felt like I had just detonated a bomb. I sat back in the dark, the blue light of the screen illuminating my face. I wasn't sad anymore. The shaking had stopped. A cold, hard resolve settled in my chest. "You want a lifestyle you can't afford," I whispered to the empty room. "Let's see how much therapy you can afford when the check bounces." I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay there plotting, my mind constructing a trap made of silence and their own hubris. They wanted to play games? Fine. But they were playing checkers, and I had just set up a chessboard they didn't even know existed. To understand why the betrayal cut so deep, you have to understand the history. You have to understand the ecosystem of guilt that my family had operated in since my father died. Dad was the glue. He was a carpenter, strong, silent, but incredibly warm. He had a soft spot for Monica. Monica was the artist, the wild spirit, the one who felt things deeply. I was the practical one, the little professor, as he called me. When he passed away from a sudden heart attack 5 years ago, he left behind a modest life insurance policy and a dying wish. "Take care of your sister, Alice. She's not as strong as you." Those words had become the chains I wore every day. Monica had never held a job for longer than 6 months. She was a freelance creative, which mostly meant she started Etsy shops that failed or tried to become an influencer in niches that were already saturated. When she was married to her first husband, he funded her whims. When he left her, citing her spending habits and refusal to contribute, she came crashing down. That was 11 months ago. She showed up at my door with trash bags full of clothes, weeping until she hyperventilated. She said she had nowhere to go. She said the stress gave her migraines that blinded her. She said she was suicidal. I did exactly what Dad would have wanted. I stepped up. And then there was Derek. I met Derek 3 months into the arrangement. Monica introduced him as a spiritual coach. She met at a wellness retreat, which I paid for. Derek was 40, with slicked-back hair that looked perpetually wet and a smile that never reached his eyes. He wore tracksuits that looked expensive and talked constantly about passive income and crypto opportunities, yet he never seemed to have money for lunch. "Alice, babe," he'd say, invading my personal space, "you're trapped in the 9-to-5 matrix. You gotta let your money work for you." I tolerated him because Monica seemed happy, but as the months wore on, his influence became obvious. Monica started using words like abundance mindset, which, in her translation, meant spending my money to attract wealth. The Monday morning after the dinner, I went to work. I sat in my office, surrounded by blueprints for the new downtown library. My phone sat on the desk, screen up. At 10:00 a.m., the first text came. "Monica, hey sis, just checking, the notification for the transfer usually comes by now. Did the bank glitch?" I looked at it and continued drinking my coffee. I didn't reply. 11:30 a.m. "Monica, Alice, are you there? The landlord is asking. I don't want to stress you, but I need to send it by noon." 12:45 p.m. Derek direct message on Instagram. "Yo Alice, Moan is freaking out. Money didn't hit, handle it." The audacity of the direct message made me laugh out loud in my quiet office. Handle it, as if I were their payroll department. I typed a response to Monica, keeping it deliberate. Ely vague. "Hey, sorry, slammed at work, audit happening. Accounts are frozen for a review, might take a few days." It wasn't a lie, I was auditing my own life. "Monica, what? A few days? Alice, we have bills, I have the car payment, the utility payment." The slip-up was right there, the car payment. She caught herself, but it was too late. I needed more than just the overheard conversation. I needed hard evidence. If I was going to cut them off, I knew Monica would run to Mom. She would spin a story that I was being abusive, that I was letting her starve, that I was dishonoring Dad's memory. I needed ammunition that even Mom, with her infinite denial, couldn't ignore. I minimized my work and opened a new window. I wasn't a hacker, but I was observant. Derek had blocked me on Instagram and Facebook, and Monica had restricted her posts, so I only saw the sad ones, pictures of rain, quotes about resilience, selfies in bed looking pale. But they were stupid. Derek was an aspiring influencer. His profiles were likely public to everyone except me. I pulled out an old burner phone I used for testing client apps. I created a fake Instagram account. No profile pic, generic name. I searched for Derek's handle, at Derek the Disruptor. His profile loaded. It was a goldmine. There was a photo from last week. Derek and Monica posing in front of a shimmering silver BMW 5 Series. Caption, "New whip, hard work pays off. Hustle grind power couple." Scroll down 2 weeks ago. A photo of a table laden with sushi and lobster, tagged at Nabu. Caption, "Eating like kings because we manifest abundance." Scroll down, a month ago, a video reel, they were on a boat, the water was turquoise. Caption, "Quick getaway to the Bahamas, needed to recharge the entrepreneurial spirit." The dates lined up perfectly. The Bahamas trip was the same week Monica told me she was in the hospital for severe migraines and needed extra money for a specialist. I had sent her $2,000 for that specialist. I felt the rage bubble up again, hot and sharp. I wasn't paying for her survival. I was funding their vacation. I was the venture capitalist for their fraud. I started taking screenshots. One by one, the car, the dinner, the boat, the captions mocking the 9-to-5 life while living off my paycheck. I printed them out in high resolution on the office plotter. The antagonist wasn't just Monica's greed, it was her calculated manipulation of my love. She had weaponized my grief for Dad. My phone buzzed again. "Monica, Alice, please, I can't deal with this stress. My heart is racing. If you don't send the money, I might have to go to the ER." I looked at the printed photo of her, holding a glass of champagne on a yacht. looking healthier than I had ever seen her. "Go to the ER then," I whispered, "but you'll have to pay for the parking." The transition from victim to strategist is a quiet one. It happens when the emotional noise dies down and the cold logic of survival kicks in. I spent the next week in a state of hyperfocus. I contacted the landlord, Mr. Henderson. He was an older gentleman, old school, who liked me because I always paid on the first of the month, usually days early. "Mr. Henderson," I said, keeping my voice professional, "this is Alice, regarding the lease at 42 Maple Street." "Alice, hello, everything all right? I haven't received the rent for this month yet, usually your clockwork." "Yes, about that. I'm initiating a lease termination. However, I understand the occupants, Monica and her partner, might want to stay. I am officially notifying you that I will no longer be the guarantor or the payer as of today. If they wish to stay, they will need to sign a new lease under their own names and credit." There was a pause. "Alice, you know neither of them has the credit score to rent a parking space, let alone that townhouse. If you pull out, I have to evict." "I understand," I said, my voice wavering only slightly. "Please proceed with the standard procedure for non-payment. Send the notice to the property address." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure." The trap was set. By law, they had a grace period, then the quit or pay notice would be posted on the door. Meanwhile, the texts from Monica escalated from panic to aggression. "Tuesday, you're ignoring me? Really? After everything I've been through?" Wednesday, "Mom is asking why I'm crying. Do you want to kill her? Do you want to give her a heart attack?" That was their trump card, Mom. I knew I had to intercept Alina before Monica poisoned the well. I called Mom on Thursday evening. "Hi, Mom." "Alice," Mom sounded fraught. "Monica is hysterical. She says there's some banking error and you're not fixing it. She says she has no food in the house." "Mom," I said, my voice calm, "Monica is lying." "What? Alice, don't say that. She's your sister." "Mom, I need you to trust me. I found out some things. I'm not cutting her off to be cruel. I'm stopping her from using us. I need you to promise me you won't give her money. If you give her money, you are hurting her." "But she said she's starving." "She's not starving, Mom. She ate at Nabu last week. I have proof, just, please don't give her a dime. Come to my place on Sunday. I'll explain everything." I heard the hesitation in Mom's silence. She wanted to believe the best, but she also knew I wasn't a liar. "Okay, Alice, I won't send anything yet." That yet was dangerous. I knew I was racing against the clock. Friday came. I left work early and drove to the townhouse. I didn't park in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched. Sure enough, the silver BMW 5 Series was there, gleaming in the driveway. It still had the temporary dealer plates. I watched as Derek came out, wearing a new leather jacket. He got in the car and revved the engine unnecessarily loud before speeding off. He wasn't looking for a job. He was living the life of a trust fund kid, and I was the trust fund. I walked up to the mailbox. Since my name was on the lease, I had a key to the box. I opened it. Bill's junk mail, and there it was, a letter from the utility company. Final notice. I took the mail. I wasn't going to let them hide the consequences anymore. I went back to my car and waited. An hour later, Monica came out. She was on the phone, pacing the small lawn. I rolled down my window just a crack. "I know," she was screaming. "She's ghosting me. The B*TCH is trying to teach me a lesson or something. But don't worry, I'm working on Mom. Mom will crack. She always does. We just need to stall the landlord." She paused, listening. Then she laughed, that same laugh from the kitchen. "Yeah, well, if she doesn't pay, I'll just tell everyone she stole my inheritance. Who are they going to believe? The cold corporate robot or the grieving sister?" I rolled the window up. My hands were trembling, not with fear, but with adrenaline. The cold corporate robot. Is that what they saw? I drove away. The investigation was over. I didn't need to know anything else. They were parasites, and they had burrowed so deep they thought they were the host. But they had made a fatal error. They assumed I was weak because I was kind. They were about to learn that kindness has a limit, but justice does not. I went home and prepared the dossier. The bank statements highlighted in yellow, the Instagram screenshots, the text messages where she claimed to be dying of hunger while posting photos of cocktails. I put it all in a crisp, black binder. I was ready for the war. The first confrontation didn't happen in person. It happened via a three-way call that Monica orchestrated, thinking she could ambush me with Mom on the line. It was Saturday morning. I was drinking tea, looking at the binder on my coffee table. My phone rang. Mom flashed on the screen. "Hello." Alice, Mom's voice was shaky. "I have Monica here. She's in a bad way." "Hi, Mom. Hi, Monica," I said, my voice flat. "Alice," Monica's voice was a theatrical wail. "Why are you doing this? The landlord just called me. He said he's sending an eviction notice. He said you terminated the lease." "I did," I said. Silence, absolute stunned silence. You what?" Monica sputtered. "You can't do that, I live here." "You live there," I corrected, "but I pay for it. And since I'm no longer paying for it, and I'm no longer willing to be liable for the property, I terminated my involvement. Mr. Henderson said you're welcome to stay if you sign a lease and pay the deposit yourself." "I don't have money," she screamed. "You know I don't have money. You're making me homeless. Mom, do you hear this? She's putting me on the street." "Alice," Mom started, her voice pleading. "Sweetheart, maybe we can talk about this. Eviction is so drastic." "It's not drastic, Mom. It's overdue," I said. "Monica, tell Mom about the BMW." "What?" Monica's voice hitched. A genuine note of panic entered her tone. "The silver BMW 5 Series parked in the driveway. The one Derek was driving yesterday. Tell Mom how much the down payment was." I don't know what you're talking about," Monica stammered. That's a friend's car. Derek is borrowing it." "Really?" I pressed. "Because the Instagram caption from 2 weeks ago says, 'New whip. Hard work pays off.' And the location tag was the dealership. And the date on the post matches the day you asked me for $2,000 for a migraine specialist." "You're stalking me," Monica shrieked, deflecting instantly. "You're spying on me. That's sick, Alice. You're obsessed." "I'm investigating where my $35,000 went," I countered. "Mom, listen to me. She isn't broke. She and Derek are spending my rent money on luxury goods. They are laughing at us. I heard them." "You're a liar," Monica screamed, her voice cracking. "She's lying, Mom. She's jealous. She's always been Jill. Oh's because Dad loved me more." That was a low blow, the lowest she could aim for. But it didn't land. It just bounced off the armor I had built over the last week. "Dad isn't here, Monica," I said coldly. "And neither is my money. You have 3 days before the pay or quit notice expires. I suggest you sell the BMW." I hung up. My heart was pounding, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt clean. I had spoken the truth. But I knew it wasn't over. Monica wouldn't give up that easily. She was cornered, and cornered animals fight dirty. She would try to turn the entire extended family against me. She would try to weaponize my mother's grief. I looked at the binder, the escalation. I needed to make sure Mom saw the evidence with her own eyes. Words were one thing, pictures were another. Monica could gaslight Mom over the phone, but she couldn't explain away a photo of herself eating lobster while claiming poverty. I packed the binder into my bag. Sunday dinner was tomorrow. Monica had threatened to come to Mom's house to settle this. Perfect, I wanted her there. I wanted her to try to lie while I held the truth in my hands. The 24 hours between the phone call and Sunday dinner were a barrage of digital harassment. Monica unleashed the flying monkeys. I received texts from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. "Alice, how could you? Your father would be ashamed." I received a message from a cousin. "I heard you're kicking Monica out. She's family." She was spinning the narrative fast. In her version, I was the rich, heartless sister hoarding wealth while she suffered from debilitating mental health issues. She left out the BMW. She left out the Bahamas. I didn't reply to any of them. I screenshot every message and added it to the binder. Evidence of manipulation. I also dug deeper. I wanted the nail in the coffin. I remembered Derek bragging about crypto. I searched his username on a popular crypto forum. I found a profile that matched his handle. He had been posting recently. User, Derek the Disruptor Post. Just secured a steady stream of funding from an angel investor, Aka the GF's dumb sister, turning $3K a month into pure yield. Living rent-free is the ultimate hack. My jaw dropped. He had literally written it down. He called me the dumb sister. He admitted to using the rent money, funding, for gambling on crypto. I printed the forum thread. It was the smoking gun. It proved premeditation. It proved malice. Sunday arrived. The sky was gray and ominous. I drove to Mom's house, the binder sitting on the passenger seat like a loaded weapon. When I arrived, Monica's car, the old rusted sedan she kept for appearances, was in the driveway. She must have parked the BMW around the block again. I walked in. The atmosphere was toxic. Mom was in the kitchen, looking pale and teary-eyed. Monica was at the kitchen table, clutching a tissue, her eyes red and puffy. Derek was standing behind her, looking menacingly protective. "She's here," Derek muttered as I walked in. "Alice," Mom said, her voice trembling. "Please, we need to stop this fighting." "I agree," I said, placing my bag on the counter. "We need to stop the lies." "The only one lying is you," Monica snapped, standing up. "Telling everyone I'm rich, I'm drowning, Alice, and you're pushing my head underwater." "Sit down, Monica," I said. "Don't tell her what to do." Derek stepped forward, chest puffed out. I looked him dead in the eye. "Derek, unless you want me to read your forum posts about your angel investor out loud to the police, I suggest you sit down and shut up." Derek froze, his eyes darted side to side. He knew exactly what I was talking about. He sat down. "Mom," I said, turning to her, "I know you want to believe Monica. I know it hurts to think she would use us. But you need to look at this." I pulled the binder out. I opened it to the first page, the photo of the Bahamas trip. "What is this?" Mom asked, adjusting her glasses. "That's Monica and Derek in the Bahamas," I said. "Date stamped last month. The week she told you she was in the hospital." Monica gasped. That's an old photo from years ago." With a timestamp from October 2024, I flipped the page. "And here is the invoice for the BMW 5 Series. I called the dealership. They confirmed the sale." "Mom, she faked these," Monica screamed, reaching for the binder. "She's a graphic designer. She photoshopped them." I pulled the binder away. "And this," I said, flipping to the final page, the forum post. "This is Derek bragging online about using the dumb sister's money to gamble." Mom read the screen grab. Her lips moved silently as she read the words dumb sister and living rent-free is the ultimate hack. The color drained from Mom's face. She looked up at Derek, then at Monica. The denial was cracking. The heartbreak was setting in. "Monica," Mom whispered, Did you really say I was too stoopy?" "Dee." "I never said that," Monica cried, but her eyes were wild, darting around the room for an exit. "We heard you," I said. "At the last dinner, in the kitchen, you laughed about it." The room fell silent. The evidence was overwhelming. The photos, the bank statements, the forum posts. It was a mountain of deceit that no amount of tears could wash away. Monica looked at Derek, waiting for him to save her. But Derek was staring at his shoes, calculating his own exit strategy. "Mom, please," Monica tried one last time, her voice small. I wanted to have a nice life. Is that a crime?" "Stealing from your sister is a crime," Mom said, her voice hardening in a way I had never heard before. "Lying to your mother is a sin." The climax wasn't a shout. It was a whimpering implosion on the front porch. Monica and Derek were asked to leave. Mom, usually the pacifist, had pointed to the door with a shaking hand. They had stormed out, Monica screaming that we were toxic and that she would never speak to us again. 3 weeks passed, the eviction process moved swiftly. I stood firm, I didn't pay. Then came the night mentioned in the title. I was at home, reading a book. It was raining hard, a torrential downpour that battered the windows. My doorbell rang, frantic, repeated buzzing. I checked the peephole, it was Monica. She was alone. She was soaked to the bone, no umbrella. I opened the door. She looked like a ghost of the woman from the dinner party. Her hair was matted, her makeup running. She wasn't wearing the designer coat anymore, she was in a flimsy hoodie. "Alice," she choked out, "please." "What do you want, Monica?" I stood in the doorway, blocking the entrance. "They locked us out," she sobbed. "The sheriff came, they changed the locks. Derek left me. He took the car, he took the laptop, he just drove off." She fell to her knees on my porch, the rain plastering her hair to her face. It was a pathetic sight. A part of me, the old Alice, wanted to reach out and pull her inside, make her tea, fix it. "I have nowhere to go," she wailed. "Mom won't answer the phone. Please, Allie, just for tonight, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I was stupid. I was influenced by him. Please." She grabbed the hem of my pants, begging, "I'll pay you back, I swear." I looked down at her. I saw the sister I had loved, but I also saw the woman who had laughed at my stupidity. I saw the woman who had eaten lobster while I ate leftovers. I saw the predator who would eat me alive if I let her back in. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. It was a list of local shelters and women's aid organizations I had printed out, just in case. "I can't let you in, Monica," I said. My voice was steady, devoid of anger, filled only with finality. "What? You can't leave me here." "I'm not leaving you here," I said, handing her the paper. "I'm giving you the resources you actually need. You need to learn how to survive without a host." "Alice," she screamed, the sorrow turning back to rage instantly. "You selfish B*TCH, you have an extra room." "That room is for me," I said. "It's for my peace of mind." "I'll tell everyone, I'll destroy you." "You already tried," I said. "It didn't work." I stepped back. "Goodbye, Monica." I closed the door. I heard her pounding on the wood, screaming obscenities, then crying, then silence. I watched from the window as she eventually stood up, slumped shoulders shaking, and walked down the driveway into the rain. She didn't have the BMW. She didn't have the arrogance. She had nothing but the consequences of her own actions. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt heavy. But it was the good kind of heavy, the weight of a burden finally being set down. The aftermath was quiet. Derek disappeared. I heard through the grapevine that he had moved to another city, likely looking for another victim to invest in his schemes. The BMW was repossessed a month later. Apparently, they had stopped making payments on that too. Monica stayed in a shelter for 2 weeks before moving into a small studio apartment in a rougher part of town. She had to get a job waiting tables to pay the rent. Mom told me she saw her once, working at a diner. She looked tired older, but she was working. Mom and I grew closer. The revelation had shattered her illusion of a perfect family, but it had built a bridge of honesty between us. We started having Sunday dinners again, just the two of us. We drank the good wine, and we talked about real things, not the polite fictions we had maintained for Monica's sake. I finally bought a new sofa. I booked the trip to Italy. 6 months later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Monica, no return address. Inside was a check for $50, and a note, "It's not much, but it's a start, I'm sorry." I stared at the check, $50 against a debt of $35,000. Mathematically, it was an insult, but symbolically, it was first honest money she had ever given me. I didn't cash it. I framed it and put it in my home office. It wasn't a trophy, it was a reminder. A reminder that I was not a bank, I was not a doormat, and I was not stupid. I was Alice, and for the first time in my life, I was free.